Good afternoon, and welcome everyone to the Rhode Island Inno Fire Awards. My name is Miranda Perez. I am the new editor for Rhode Island and Boston Inno, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you all, learning about your companies, and more importantly, writing about them. For those of you who may not be familiar with Rhode Island Inno, we're a news and event platform dedicated to covering startups in the local innovation scene in Rhode Island. We're a sister publication of the Boston Business Journal, and we're a part of the American Inno, a network of sites in 16 markets that are growing with catalysts nationwide. At Rhode Island, we work to connect innovators in a couple of ways. First and foremost is with The Beat, a newsletter that goes out every Tuesday, and it is a one-stop shop for everything going on in Rhode Island. You can sign up for The Beat by going to www.rhodeislandinno.com, where you'll also find original coverage on up-and-coming startups, fundraising, ecosystem trends, and more. And of course, we connect entrepreneurs through events like this one. If you aren't already, please go give us a follow on our social accounts at Rhody_Inno to stay up to beat with everything we have going on. Tag RI on Fire to share with us how your company is celebrating today. Before we begin the program, a few housekeeping items. Attendees will have the ability to keep their cameras on or off throughout the entire program. If you would like to turn them on, simply go to the camera button at the bottom of the screen, press it on or off as you choose. Attendees are in listen mode throughout the program. If you'd like to stir up conversation in the audience, congratulate a company, or simply chat with our event host, Megan, you can direct message her through the chat box. Rhode Island Inno annually holds the Fire Awards, and we'd like to thank our founding partner, Cox Business, for their continued support in helping and making today's program possible. Joining us today from the Cox Business team is Suzette Roberts, marketing manager, to say a few words.
Thanks, Miranda. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us here. We've been very proud partners of Rhode Island Inno for several years now, and so we're excited to be back for another Rhode Island Inno Fire Awards. Congratulations to everyone that's being honored today. For those of you who don't know Cox Business, we are the business-to-business division of Cox Communications. So we provide data, phone, television, managed services, cloud services, and premise-based security services to businesses of all sizes. But of special interest to the audience for today, we also sponsor or produce an event called Get Started Rhode Island. It's our own mini version of Shark Tank, if you want to relate it to that. And it's a pitch style competition. We are actually now taking applications for companies who want to pitch. And that deadline has been extended to June 15th. So if anyone's interested, I encourage you to go to getstartedri.com to apply. We'll be selecting our semifinalists at the end of the month. Then we'll go on from there to select 6 finalists who will then compete for $25,000 in cash and $25,000 in other services like mentoring, advertising, things like that. So we're pretty excited to get that rolling, and then the event takes place on September 29th. And again, that URL is getstartedri.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzette. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator and panelists for today's discussion. Moderating our panel today is Carolyn Jones, Market President and Publisher of the Boston Business Journal. And joining our panel is Gary Goldberg, founder and CEO of Squad Locker, Lindsay Kinn, tell me if I pronounced it right, because I will stop. I did? Okay. Lindsay Kinn, co-founder of WINGSPANS, and Amanda Roman, Director of Program Development and Operations of the Rhode Island Black Business Association. We are thrilled that you all could join us, and now I will hand things over to Carolyn to get things started.
Terrific. Thank you, Miranda, so much, and welcome, everyone. Thanks to Gary, Lindsay, Amanda. We are thrilled to have you and have a great conversation today. Just a quick mention. I just wanted to mention a little bit about the rest of the program too. You know, as you know, the Fire Awards honor standout startups that are sparking the innovation that drives the tech ecosystem in the Ocean State. And so we're going to be highlighting the 25 companies and naming blazers in our 2021 categories in just a bit, right after the panel. So stay tuned for that. So, you know, this great to have all of you here, and congratulations to all of you. for the honor that you're getting today as well. We thought it'd be great to chat with some of you a little bit about your experiences. So maybe we can kind of start off, and I think, Gary, I'll start with you, and maybe just briefly, each of you, give me like your startup story, how you got started and reached the point that you're at now. So Gary, why don't you kick it off?
Sure. Thanks for, of course, having us today. I not only Gary Goldberg, the founder and CEO of Squad Locker, but I also represent about 155 employees in our company working in the great state of Rhode Island. So it's with great pride that I joined the panel today. Our startup story is it's a very personal one. I'm a third generation textile engineer, textile scientist. Grew up in Fall River, Mass, and textiles is my family heritage. But it's not until my wife and I started to raise 3 kids in Rhode Island and get them into youth sports that we realized there was a gap in the way that the market served the youth athletic and school marketplace, particularly with customized apparel and uniform. And so Squad Locker set out to create a tech-enabled service company where we can use software to simplify and organize and literally save thousands and thousands of hours a year for people who are in leadership positions in youth leagues, coaching, schools, mentoring, and give them back the ungiftable gift of time, while also allowing them to manage their brand and excite their community members with Amazon-like fulfillment. So, the journey's been a multi-year journey. We capitalized the company in 2015, but we've had significant growth since the end of 2015 and attracted a lot of capital. And, we're on our way to further accomplishments.
That's awesome. Great story. And as a grown children now, but as a mom with lots of kids in youth sports, I wish we had you back then. So,
and
Lindsay,
and Carolyn, we would have been there for you.
I know you would. So Lindsay, share with us a little bit about your story.
I was just checking to see if I'm unmuted, but it's so great to be here. Thank you for having us. So my story is, it is also a personal one. I came to Providence and Brown University for a PhD in material science. And while I was here, I had a fellowship from the NSF, and it required me to teach 7th grade science. So I was, that was one of the experiences that really inspired Wingspans. It was a 2-year fellowship. And while I was there, I recognized that a lot of the students just couldn't, had very limited career exposure, and also were struggling to kind of connect what they were learning in school to the real world. For example, the slope of a line, they didn't know why they were learning that. So the second year of the grant, I kind of used this opportunity. I pitched to the program director to start Wingspans. We used to be called Inventing Heron. And I started, they gave me the initial funding for Wingspans, and I started, I put together a team of other graduate students at Brown University and just started interviewing, kind of inspired by Studs Terkel, who's the radio journalist in the 70s, who interviewed people about their work, and captured the voice of the workplace in America in the 70s. So we started interviewing people in our lives about their work, and it's really evolved in the last five years. We're now a team of journalists and filmmakers who curate all the stories. Wow. And our philosophy is, if you can see it, you can be it. And so our objective is to help young people reimagine their futures, and really see themselves in these different fields, and just introduce them to the myriad of job opportunities and career opportunities that are out there. So we relaunched our platform this March, and we're currently partnering with community colleges and colleges.
That's awesome. I mean, what a great story, and so key too, because getting students at that age, that's what you hear we need for the future. So for the future talent, getting them to see all the possibilities that are out there sounds like really a lot of fun and rewarding. And if you can get them to understand the importance of slope of a line, maybe you could teach me too. That's great. So Amanda, share with us a little bit about the Rhode Island Black Business Association and your journey.
Absolutely. So first off, thank you so much for having me here and for recognizing Reba. We're actually celebrating 10 years, but we've had a couple pivots since then. And 10 years ago, community members and local leaders came together to really look at some of the issues that were keeping small and minority businesses from scaling. So they conducted brainstorming sessions and did sampling and, interviewed, small business owners to really identify what were those key areas. And so we started more in a community organizing and advocacy space and transitioned, I'd say around 2015, to actually providing programs and services to small and minority businesses. So we are really pushing for a more equitable business environment in Rhode Island. And we do that in 3 different ways: by providing business development resources, so access to capital, microloans, grants, collateral programs. We also have workshops, trainings, business mentorship. And then I'd say our biggest program is actually our free business consultant program. So we actually connect businesses with consultants in technology, marketing, to really focus in on a project and grow that area of their business. So we do career resource programs. We also are still an advocacy organization. So we do a lot of different things as, creating equity in workforce is a huge task, and it's not just one thing, right? So we kind of have this 3-pronged approach at accomplishing our vision. So that's a little bit about us.
That's terrific. And, just FYI, Miranda is posting in the chat for some of you a link to your website, and she's posting a couple of other things for your reference. So that gives you some context to the conversation. Can you just define quickly, so small and micro minority owned, what size would that be?
Yeah, so it's technically under 50, but the majority of minority businesses we work with are under 5 employees. So for the census, there's actually census data out there on the number of micro and small minority businesses, but those do make up the majority of minority businesses in the state.
That's terrific, and so important, with supplier diversity being a key issue both in Rhode Island, in Massachusetts, and beyond, for sure. So then let's talk a little bit. It's June 2nd, May 29th, sort of the world flipped back, I guess, and we're all trying to figure that out and get used to it. It might have changed sooner in Rhode Island. I think I'm speaking from a Massachusetts perspective. So, the past 15 months has presented challenges, opportunities, and everything in between. So maybe share a little bit with us, and anyone can jump in and start. How did the challenges of the past 15 months affect your growth story? And then, what was the silver lining? What were the sort of the clouds? Share a little bit about that. Who wants to start? Lindsay, you look like I'm going to pick on you.
Sure.
And then Lindsay, and then Gary.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting time for us. When the pandemic first hit, we made it was the old version of our site, but we did make it free for all the schools and all the homeschoolers that were now at home. So that really, it helped us. We had a lot of new people using the site, so that was really exciting for us. We offered it for free. We got on this this list that was called, I think it was called Amazing Resources. So a lot of people outside of Rhode Island found us, and that was really exciting. We were kind of lucky in the sense that we were kind of ready for the pandemic to hit. We were a remote platform, or a web-based platform already. In terms of the challenges, what we've found is we were in the, this year has been a very hard time in the K through 12 space. A lot of the schools have had to spend money in areas that they didn't plan for. If they stayed in school, ventilation systems, and then of course, laptops and things like that. So a lot of the schools are broke in the K through 12 space. So that has been a challenge. And I think they're just so overextended. So that has definitely been a challenge in terms of getting paying customers in that space.
Yeah, definitely an opportunity to support the schools. Gary, youth sports, started. Talk a little bit about how the 15 months have challenged you, and also any silver linings.
Sure. So the NBA canceled their season, and the day after, our revenues dropped about 90% year over year.
Wow.
And so there was a trough for us as the world tried to figure out what was and wasn't possible for people to get literally in close proximity to each other. Schools went remote, youth sports were effectively canceled, the Ivy League canceled their season. But what happened was really fascinating, and the silver lining in the story for us was Squad Locker is designed to allow anybody to design what it is that they want their community to buy. And then we have single unit on-demand fulfillment that is set up here in Warwick. And what that means is if Lindsay or you or Amanda buy something that has been chosen by your administrator, we will make it for you specifically and ship it directly to your home. And so all of a sudden what happened was all of the local mom and pop competitors of ours across the United States were effectively closed for business, and we were open for business. We stayed open. Our manufacturing facility endured while it was really, really complex and difficult from a safety and security standpoint and health and wellness for our staff. And we took great care in managing that process. What we did have was an on-demand supply chain for anybody who was engaging in any of the activities that we support. So we went from a big trough to a steep incline. And our business bounced back really strong into the summer, and we're back to substantial 100% year-over-year growth right now as a result. So what happened was we got found out more often, and like our potential clients likely to use us accelerated. And so our use case really got fast adoption. We think we may have compressed 3 or 4 years of an adoption curve into literally these last 9 months.
Wow.
And so while it was hard and it was expensive on a per unit basis to keep ourselves open during this time, because we had additional costs, we had to pay our labor rate much higher to offset the federal and state subsidies that were encouraging people not to work. We overcame all that through investment, but what we did was acquire a lot of new customers and really teach the marketplace that this is the new dynamic. We're here to serve you in a way that you really want to be served. And so that's the silver lining for us.
Yeah, a lot of new dynamics have come out of this. So Amanda, talk a little bit about the association, but also your member, businesses. I'm sure many of them thrived, but many of them either closed, got hit hard. What does it look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as for most of us, the last 15 months have completely disrupted our lives and businesses. And we absolutely saw that with the minority-owned businesses that we serve. We know that minority communities were much more significantly impacted by COVID. We also know that there's a higher rate of minority businesses that closed due to COVID. I think the national percentage for Black business closure is 41%. So that is a really significant number. And then within the same 15 months, we also saw a national reckoning of racism and how it's held back communities of color. And so all these things have happened within the last 15 months and have really shed a light on some of the inequities that existed. So for REBA, this has caused a greater investment and support in our programs and services. We've been able to add multiple staff members to increase them to meet the increased demand. And we've also seen an increase in donations, individual, corporate, also in partnerships, just general support overall. We have our volunteer numbers are up. I mean, this is great and it's definitely needed. We went from having a steady flow of people calling our offices looking for services to being completely overwhelmed with businesses needing help. And so, it's definitely been quite a 15 months of growth for us.
Yeah, I can imagine it will be, so critical even moving forward, particularly for the small minority-owned businesses more than any. And I know we've done both at Inno and I know at the BBJ, we've done a lot of reporting on that, and we'll continue to follow that story and hopefully bring it to light, so that it continues to be important. So, we're talking about how the challenges affected, and pivot is a overused word in the last 15 months. Everyone's had to pivot, but how did this pandemic and perhaps the social justice issue, social justice issues throughout the year, how have they caused you to pivot and really change? And Gary, you talked a little bit about this, but will those changes hold as you go forward and the economy opens up again? Will that stay, or are you going to sort of pivot again now that reopening is here?
Yeah, we didn't really, I mean, to be fair and to be honest to the question that's being posed, we didn't really experience a substantial pivot.
Mhm.
We managed complexities due to safety and security around our people and social distancing and all of the the quagmire that came with literally being a human being during the time of COVID. But there was no real pivot for us. For us, it was staying true to the course, understanding our customers, serving our customers, appreciating our customers, loving our customers, and treating them the way that they really wanted to and expected to be treated. And for us, that's kind of a core competency. So again, I think it was just really watching the market adapt to what we were offering and understanding that better, but there was no significant pivot for us, to be honest.
Yeah, no, great view. And I think when you mentioned your core competency, I do think from many of the folks that I've talked to throughout the course of this 15 months on programs like this and just casual conversations, is that in many cases, the core values of the company, if they had a strong mission, they had sort of that strong vision, it did help them withstand a lot of the challenges. So, kudos to you. Lindsay, education, I mean, has been, schools, I'm as a mom of, grown children, but, those, my colleagues, friends, coworkers, people that, like the challenges that that has exemplified, throughout the course of the day. So talk a little bit about what were some of the pivots and what changes, if any, like how does that look going forward?
Yeah, so at the beginning of COVID or the pandemic, we did focus more on the homeschooling. We kind of tested out the homeschooling market and tried to get some customers there and just feel it out. When we launched a Kickstarter campaign last November, and we did when we launched that campaign, it was a really great opportunity for us to test the market for a product that we hadn't relaunched yet, and so we tried. We experimented with that market during that time, and moving forward, we are going to focus on. We want to return to that market eventually, but we are focusing on the community college and the college market right now.
Yeah, excellent. Amanda, any comments on that in terms of sort of the pivot, the changes?
Yeah, I mean, the services that we provide absolutely pivoted. We had to kind of, step up to take on some of the state's relief programs, and then also help businesses. The number one reason we found that businesses weren't accepted for PPP and things like that were documents, so like financial documents. So getting businesses to get that stuff ready is something we really pushed for. So yeah, we've definitely seen services pivots, and then also we've helped businesses actually pivot what they do. So we have businesses that we work with where they're they do uniforms and they pivoted to scrubs, right? We've seen people that have pivoted to PPE, and so we've definitely helped businesses pivot, but also helped businesses get online, right? We get their e-commerce platform set up, and those are things that are going to stick and help their businesses grow. I mean, we did it as an organization ourselves. We had to get online quickly, but we also had to help the businesses that we work with do the same. So I think that, I don't know if that's exactly a pivot, but I think it's definitely something that's really going to help all these businesses long-term.
100%. Gary, any comments there? Just you shaking your head, or you just agree?
Well, it's really interesting to hear Amanda and Lindsay share their stories. I find Amanda's work really compelling and Lindsay's work really compelling. I think education and access to education is the kind of key driver for wealth creation. And so to know that these two innovators are working on that on behalf of the community is just really great. It's gratifying.
Yeah. I think, Amanda, your comments on that pivoting what they do, that's one of the things I think, and in this innovation economy, and really in sort of what Rhode Island Inno is all about, is that people found a way, were manufacturing one product perhaps, and then all of a sudden turned and doing something completely different. And as long as they had that core culture, right, they were able to do that because everybody was on board. So that's really, really a key, and innovation will continue to be the key, certainly, as we move forward. And I think, as you said, getting online, understanding whatever which we'll talk in a minute, kind of about what we think reopening looks like for you, knowing how you can do things virtually, and successfully in many ways will help us in every way as we move forward. So let's talk a little bit about money. Fundraising, raising funds is key and important to all of you, you, Amanda, for your organization, and helping your member organizations as well. So has remote work, the Zoom world that we're living in, has that helped or hurt your fundraising strategy? And how has it changed, if at all? Amanda, why don't you start?
Did you say me? Sorry,
Yeah.
I couldn't hear you. Okay, yeah. No, I think it's helped. I find that there's usually a call first when you start having a fundraising conversation with whether it's a grant funder or a business that wants to invest, and it's Zoom now, right? And so I feel like that face-to-face kind of cuts a corner. So that's my first thought when I was thinking about that. I think there's less steps in the meetings. But yeah, I think it has. I think that we've also just shifted from only looking at, I'm sure most businesses, as Lindsay mentioned, you did a crowdfunding thing. And so I think we're shifting a little bit from also looking at individual donations. And so that's something that, we hadn't really had previously, that after this year, we really have seen a lot of individual donations come in. So, it's been a really unique year for us for fundraising. And so we've definitely seen more funds come in than in previous years. But it's obviously due to what's taken place over the last year. So.
Yeah, interesting. Lindsay, you talked a little bit about the crowdfunding. Talk a little bit about your experience with fundraising in this world.
Yeah, so one of the things that the pandemic kind of facilitated when we launched the Kickstarter campaign, our launch party allowed us to engage a lot more people all over the country. So what we did is we did a Zoom similar to this, but we had little breakout rooms, and we had kind of true to what we do. We had people in different careers talking about their careers in these breakout rooms. So it was really exciting. It was really kind of like a mini career fair, really exciting to be able to engage over 150 people all over the country in our Kickstarter launch party. And then just moving forward, I almost don't know what it's like to fundraise not in the pandemic. So it's been really great. I mean, just in terms of fundraising, we're gonna raise a round of funding. We're just getting that started over the summer, and we're part of the Capital Network Fellowship right now to kind of facilitate that. They're a really great network that helps female founders raise a round of funding. And so we're part of that right now, and we're able to meet virtually with them weekly. But I just want to say, like, just meeting with people face to face. We have a lot of advisors in the company that are not local to Rhode Island. We have, some local advisors, but it's also just enabled us. We have advisors, in Napa Valley and Silicon Valley, and I have weekly. I don't know if this was possible before the pandemic, because I'm not sure. I wasn't really doing this then, but it's been so great to meet with everybody face to face and really get to know them in that way.
So more meetings dependent. That's
Yeah.
Interesting. Gary, any thoughts on that?
Well, from our perspective, we completed a fundraising process pre-pandemic, about a month before the pandemic occurred, and took on ABS Capital out of Baltimore and closed a $20+ million round January, February, right before the pandemic.
Wow.
So the timing obviously was very advantageous.
Yeah.
And so right now our balance sheet is pretty strong, and we're not actively pursuing capital today. But look, going forward, as an entrepreneur and as an innovator, and anybody who's in this space and needs to know this going into it, you are always raising money.
Right.
Whether you're active or not, you are always fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a leader of an organization, the ultimate challenge is to make sure there's enough oxygen to make it up the mountain. And that oxygen is cash. And so I mean, I wake up every day and I go to bed every night thinking, how much cash do we have and how long will it last and when do I need to go get more? And that's just the nature of the beast. So there will be more, obviously, fundraising journeys in Squad Locker's future. And I know probably that Amanda and Lindsay understand a little bit of that feeling, or a lot of bit of that feeling, depending on the mood and the week and what they're working on.
Wise words, always fundraising. You got to, cash is king, I guess, always. It never changes, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Just a quick add to that question. You mentioned, Amanda, like less step. I think it was you to say there's less steps, with the Zoom world. Do you feel like sometimes decisions on getting funds, like getting the cash, if you will, the decisions from those folks who have it, was it quicker during the pandemic, do you think, because of the environment we're in?
I thought so, but and I've had somewhat of a fundraising background as well, and I thought it was a little bit quicker. I feel like normally when I've met with larger businesses, corporations, it's like there's like 3 or 4 meetings, and I do think that things are just moving quicker because everything's virtual, and so it's a lot easier to schedule a Zoom meeting than it is to schedule a time when everyone can go to a certain location in Warwick or wherever it is, and so I think it's moving things quicker.
Yeah, sometimes the access is a little easier too. You can get people together. They don't have to travel, all that. So we'll see how that.
Just a comment on that, Carolyn, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
I totally agree with what Amanda says. I think the efficiency of meeting via Zoom increases. But for me, I don't believe, like, from a long-term perspective, it's as effective as if I were to meet Amanda. I would want to shake her hand. I'd want to sit. I want to sit in front of her and like have a cup of coffee and say, "Oh, what'd you get in your coffee?" Right? I mean, there are these really interesting, subtle social cues that are absent in this two-dimensional world, and so I think it is more efficient to connect, but to really know somebody, I think, is almost impossible in this format. And so, for me in my business career, the deep, meaningful connections that I've made have been an effort to be in person.
That's a great point. Actually, it is a great point because, and it will remain to be seen that while it might be more efficient, Amanda, as you said, sometimes, and in the environment we're in, kind of a crisis environment, money decisions want to help made more quickly, but would say the next round, will you get that money the next round if you don't really know them, if you don't really have that personal connection? So
I hope that all my meetings go back to in person. I hope there's a combination. I think that we're learning like a hybrid model is probably where we're going to be. And so, I'm really excited. There's people I've been Zooming with for a year now, and I haven't met in person. And so I'm like definitely looking forward to that first cup of coffee. With them.
Exactly. And that's all changing. So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I completely agree. Everybody that I've met virtually, I really do hope to meet in person. And I think it is important just to.
Totally agree. So to that end, then let's talk a little bit about reopening. And, this may be very different for all of you launching during the pandemic, working with your businesses, and depending on the size of your business or your philosophy in general. So how you navigate the fast pace of change as it relates to workplace culture and the reopening. We're talking about this all the time. Hybrid, what's it going to look like? What will look like? So talk a little bit about your own reopening strategy, companies, folks that you work with, and how are you going to manage that? Gary, want to start there?
Sure. So I think this is a leadership question.
Exactly.
And so as a leader, I went to my office every day. We had a manufacturing facility that was open during the entire pandemic. We had lots of people working from home who weren't required to actually touch a manufactured product. So sales, engineering, customer support. For us, our reopening plan starts with a vaccination. I have been vaccinated. My entire family has been vaccinated. My parents, luckily, had access to the vaccine. And so I'm a believer in the vaccination. So I'm encouraging as many people to get vaccinated as possible. Yeah. The science and the math around the vaccination is very, very compelling. The second thing is, remote's interesting and fun and nice. But as I explained in my earlier comment, I think the learning happens in between the Zoom meetings. And so for us, we are back. Our office is open. The governor gave us the leniency and leeway to do that, and we took advantage of it. And all I'm saying is in the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks or however it's been, I don't know the exact date, the activity and connectivity in our business is fantastic. And the side conversations and the water cooler conversations and the high fives in and around the cubicles is having a meaningful impact in the wellness of our company, the wellness of our employees, and the way they feel and smile. And I know that's affecting our customers. Has to.
Yeah.
And so for us as a business, the reason I decided to come to work alone in an office that could seat 175 people many days on my own was because I dreamt of the day that we'd be back here together. And now it's happening. And that, again, I think it goes back to leadership. What kind of business do you want to run? What kind of culture do you want to have? And who do you want working for you? And so for us, we want to be together.
Yeah, great. That's great points. Amanda, Lindsay, thoughts on reopening, your strategy, what member firms are strategizing?
Yeah, I think, for Reba, we've been open in some capacity. We've needed to be there to answer the phones. So, you mentioned leadership, like that was where our leader was, right? Making sure that, there was always someone on the phones in case someone called, because businesses were in crisis, and we had to be there, right? So, I think that we'll most likely continue to have a hybrid model. We have new staff that, we haven't done much face-to-face with yet. And so I think it'll be, we definitely need to that's definitely something we're all looking forward to. But I think we'll probably always exist in a hybrid model. I think we've realized that we can serve more people. We can reach more people. There are individuals who may not have easy access to a car, or it makes it easier for childcare, right? And so we're able to provide services to them. They don't have to come to us like they did previously. So, I think going forward, we will see a hybrid model. But, most of the businesses that we also work with have, been open in some capacity as well. So, a lot of businesses haven't had that luxury of work from home. So, we've been providing that support along the way. So,
yeah, definitely. Lindsay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, since we document or we portray whatever's happening in the workplace, we plan to just document whatever those changes are, and in through storytelling. So if people continue to work at home, we're going to go into their homes and film them working from home. And so we just plan to really have Wingspans be kind of an accurate portrayal of whatever's happening as we open.
Yeah, great. I do want to mention that we do have the chat, so if anybody does want to post any questions, I promise I'll take a look and take those questions for sure. But I want to shift the conversation a little bit to sort of diversity and equity in the workplace. Along with the pandemic, and which has its own social justice issues in terms of access. Gary, you mentioned the vaccine. People who are fortunate to have gotten it or get access to it. We had obviously huge issues with, we just we just marked the anniversary of the death of George Floyd, and then all the things that have happened beyond then. So how can startups take the lead when it comes to bringing about more diversity and equity in the workplace? How can the startup community, which traditionally has not always been that diverse, how can they, take on this issue? Amanda, maybe you might want to start on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, startups and small businesses have a real opportunity here. I think sometimes with larger businesses, it is harder because you have so many people, so many levels of management to think about. But with startups, you have the ability to prioritize, DEI from the ground up. And I really do think it comes from leadership. I think there's a big disparity between employees caring about diversity and leadership at times. And so I think we need to kind of close that gap, and also transparency, being transparent about the makeup of your organization. If you don't know where you're at, how are you going to get somewhere? So I think that's really important. Investing in your workforce is really important. And so looking at it from not just a diversity lens, but also equity and inclusion, and like what those mean, like what does equity mean in the workplace? Have that conversation, right? So what does inclusion mean? It's different for everyone, right? So that's part of inclusion. So the other piece, which I think is a part of workplace culture, is diversity in suppliers. So thinking about where you spend your money and being transparent about that as well. So, you know, as people are looking for places to work, I mean, having that information is going to make you more attractive to, you know, job seekers. So.
Hugely, absolutely. Lindsay, Gary, you want to comment on a little bit on sort of from your perspective, how startups can take the lead on the diversity and equity question, and or perhaps things that you've done or experiences that you know others have had. Lindsay, you want to take that? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Lindsay? Okay,
No,
Lindsay.
Yeah, let's let Lindsay start this one.
Great.
Okay, sure. So I'm kind of excited that, you know, as a startup, as a very small company, it's kind of a blank canvas to spend that extra time to make sure we meet those diversity and inclusion goals. And what we've been doing is just making sure we, like, as we bring people on, even, you know, we want to bring on the best people, but we also want to make sure that our own company is diverse. And one of the things we are doing is we're partnering, I guess on the flip side of things, we're partnering with companies to develop branded content for them. So, and then putting those companies on our platform to attract and to catalyze that diversity for other companies. So that's just another initiative that we're hoping to partner with companies and put their content on our platform, and also give it to them to use however they want to attract a more diverse employer base. Because we really do kind of like going back to, if you can see it, you can be it. If a company portrays a diverse, you know, that diverse people are welcome there, then they will be able to find those people easier.
Great. That's absolutely a great example when it comes to hiring. I mean, if you see it, you can be it, because people, no matter, you know, what your, what perspective you come from, you know, seeing other people who are similar to you will make you want to join, and then, you know, hopefully then creates even a more diverse workplace. Definitely. Gary, go ahead.
Well, this is an incredibly complex question, and I would also argue, Carolyn, that it may require its own hour or 2-hour episode.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But to unpack it a little bit, because I know you were going to ask this, and I did a little thinking about it ahead of time. This is something that a company can't do on its own. And so in thinking about that, for me, I'm the CEO of a company. I'm given a limited amount of resources every year, and my job is to maximize the reward that those resources achieve. And that's usually shareholder value and customer satisfaction. When those two things buoy up together, the company's moving forward. Well, how does diversity, equity, inclusion work into that equation? For me, I want to have a rounded approach to thinking. So, for example, if everybody thinks like me and looks like me and acts like me and comes from my culture, I have a very biased and narrow perspective on what my potential customer base would want, need, or like. So to maximize my opportunity, I need a certain level of diversity in my workforce so that I get what they want, in a very, very simple and pragmatic approach. But to be honest with you, the pre-work that goes into having access to those employees, I can't really do, because I don't have the resources for that. So when I started off this conversation by saying I can't do it alone, it's going to be partnering with people like Amanda or people like Lindsay to say, hey, I'm looking for qualified candidates. You know, I went to a Quaker school. I went to Moses Brown School in Providence, and, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a core fundamental belief in the fabric of that campus, and as a result, it is a belief in me as a person. I don't hire based on anything other than qualification, but boy, would I love a diverse group of applicants. For us, that's the challenge. You know, we put up job descriptions, we put up jobs, and we want nothing more than the diversity that would represent the community as a whole. The challenge is making that happen. And so for us, we're going to have to tap into, you know, organizations like Amanda represents, and really take advantage of that. So again, it's not something I can do alone, but do I see the benefit in it? Absolutely. Will my shareholders benefit from it? Most certainly. Will my customers benefit from it? There's no doubt.
100%.
And so as a business owner, it's the right thing to do for all the right reasons. The question is, it's just not that easy.
And, you know, the point that you make, I think, is that it has to be intentional. You know, I think, and I guess not argue, but I would just make the point that not only do people say, well, I want the best qualified person, but they have to look, you know, beyond what paper shows as the best qualified. And you do have to be intentional about finding diversity and finding people who are diverse and think differently. You know, I don't know, Amanda, you're shaking your head.
Yeah. No, I was actually gonna add that, and just thinking about the way that we're promoting jobs, you know, the job descriptions. I mean, there's so much data around the different types of people and how they perceive a job description. So I know that women will only apply for a job if they have like 90% of the qualifications, whereas like men, if it's like 15%, it's low. So, right. So understanding like how people, even just the psychology of a job description, is a great start. And there's resources out there that are free that actually get into a lot of this, a lot of the data around this. And so, you know, there's definitely some areas where you can start in just thinking about how you're promoting your jobs. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I like the psychology of the job description is key for sure. Definitely. So we are heading into the end of this conversation, believe it or not. This has been great. And Gary, as you said, we could divide these subjects up and talk for hours on them. The Boston Business Journal, actually, we do have a program on race equity in business where we're kind of looking, I think it's on June 9th, if I'm not mistaken. And that's look back at what the past year has done and a look ahead. So hopefully I'm sure we'll be addressing some of those, the things that we mentioned right now. So just to give each of you sort of a final word, I wonder maybe if you want to just give your final thought, maybe a word or two of advice, counsel, you know, words of wisdom to those in the audience who are in the startup community, not only those who are honored today, but others thinking about it, or those who are thinking to invest in startups. So just a final thought or two about, you know, key things that you see as priorities as we kind of enter this this next phase of our economy coming out of a pandemic. And let's see, I will start with Gary, and then I'll go to Lindsay, and then I'll end with Amanda. Gary, go for it.
Sure. So again, thanks for having me and Squad Locker here in this discussion. It's wonderful, and it's so nice to meet Lindsay and Amanda and hear what they're working on. And if I can be helpful to any of you individually or anybody on the panel or in the audience, my email address is ggoldberg@squadlocker.com. Just feel free to reach out to me, put in the subject, saw you on that panel, I want to ask you a question. Every employee in my company, we're an open door policy, so it goes for the community as well. As it relates to being an entrepreneur or an innovator, you know, thinking back, I was in a similar panel maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and somebody asked me, well, how do you know that you're an entrepreneur? I want to be an entrepreneur as a younger audience. And I said, well, do you have a thought that kind of sticks with you and you kind of want to figure it out, but you don't understand what the resolution will be for that thought, but it's kind of haunts you a little bit? I said, well, if you have one of those and it doesn't go away, you may be an entrepreneur. And so that's really what entrepreneurial spirit is like the noodling of an idea, and to work on it and to commit your emotion and time into it, and to take the risk associated with being wrong and making mistakes. And that's what entrepreneurial and innovation is all about. In order to get good at it, and look, I'm 51 years old and I've been doing this. I told somebody that I've never applied for a job in my life. I've only done startups. I've never had a real job, I guess. And the way to be successful at it is, don't go it alone. Whatever you think is right, you're probably wrong. And surround yourself with really, really bright people who are significantly better and more capable than you are in the fields that you're weakest in. So find what your passion is, get after that, become really good at that. I'm really good at textile manufacturing, right? I'm really good at it. I'm not really good at marketing. I'm really not good at sales management. I'm really bad at a bunch of other things. So what do? I find people that are really great at that, and I put my ego aside and say, woo, I'm so lucky to have you next to me. Would you please help me? I need help in that. And so that's how you accelerate your opportunity, or that's how you accelerate it, is just building your tribe and getting everybody pulling in the same direction. So
great words, great thoughts. Lindsay, final thoughts.
Yeah, so I kind of I want to say a few of the similar sentiments as Gary. It's just so great to be here and hear about everybody's work, and I'm so excited just for this opportunity and recognition. So thank you. In terms of, I encourage everybody to go to WINGSPANS, wingspans.com, and check out what we're doing. We are As I mentioned, we're partnering with community colleges and colleges and also companies to help them catalyze their diversity and improve their talent pool. We're also always looking for really inspiring, humble, interesting people to profile and diverse. We do prioritize diversity in the stories that we tell. So please send those interesting people our way, inspiring, humble people our way. We will be profiling in next week. I'm really excited. We're going to be filming the costume designer for The Lion King. That's going to be coming back onto Broadway soon, so that'll be really fun.
Cool.
And then in terms of entrepreneurs, I kind of also agree that community is really important. Find your community. It can be a very lonely, isolating journey as an entrepreneur. And so to find your people, feel free to reach out to me. Find your communities, whether it's fellowships or accelerator programs. Mass Challenge is a great accelerator program local to Rhode Island. And then also just know that failure is, to just keep putting yourself out there. Failure is part of the journey, and you just need to keep putting. It does get easier. The failures do get easier, and then good things do happen. So to just keep putting yourself out there.
Terrific. Great. And Amanda, take us home, and then we're going to head into the rest of the program.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. And,
Thank
you know,
you.
I encourage you all to reach out and get involved. We're always looking for business consultants, mentors, and volunteers. It's a great way to have an impact in your community. My last thought is really a call to action and, to really think about the lens through which we see innovation. There are so many businesses out there who are pivoting and doing really awesome things. And, we can have an impact by where we spend our money. And so I encourage you, next time you're thinking about, I need something printed or I need something, there are resources out there. There's Black Lives Biz, there's the Secretary of State database, you can call REBA. Invest in minority businesses. Like, this is something that you can do to have a direct impact on the economy now.
Outstanding advice and a great way to end this conversation. This was amazing. You all are really, truly fantastic. It can see why you're so successful and will continue to be. And I think you gave a lot of good advice, not only for startups, people already in business, people thinking about it, and then those of us who are, not in startups and just work for companies. Great lessons on leadership and really good thoughts. So thanks so much for joining me and sharing so much of your thoughts and your insight and your stories. We really, really appreciate that. But now I guess it is time to learn who our Inno Blazers are for this year. So Miranda, I know you've been patiently waiting, so back to you. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you to all the panelists for joining us. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, so I really hope everybody else did. I was typing something in the chat though too, because we were talking about being intentional with our spending. There's this app called Myra. I don't know how to say it, but I try not to butcher it. But it's catered to Black-owned businesses. So it's like an Amazon, but Black-owned businesses from everywhere, obviously outside of Rhode Island, can get onto it. And then that's how you can intentionally shop for, convenience. Because a lot of times we say, well, I won't get my Black-owned soap the same time as I would, say, getting Dove in the store. So I wanted to drop that in the chat for anybody that was interested. So each year, to get back to Rhode Island on Fire and all the great things, we recognize that this is a premier program. So we honor 25 companies and organizations setting the local innovation economy ablaze. While we do accept nominations, the list is entirely editorial driven. Standout startups can be recognized for innovative product launches, high funding rounds, and more. Winners are culled from the results of a nomination process and insight generated from the editorial team, aka me, and our great editors who are not present right now. In just a moment, we will be sharing with you a video of this year's 25 honorary companies. Our honorees were broken into 5 categories: ecosystem supporters, fintech, health and wellness, lifestyle and consumers, and Inno picks. In each of our 5 categories, we then named an Inno Blazer. Honoring companies only know what category they are being recognized in, but they will soon find out if they are Inno Blazer in their category. Congratulations to all the companies for this recognition, and good luck. amazing, amazing work, everybody. Cheers to each of you, and then a big congratulations to our Inno Fire Award Blazer winners this year. I'd like to give a thanks to our founding partner, Cox Business, again, for all your continued support in helping making today's program possible. Congratulations again to our honorees and everyone who joined us. I hope you enjoyed the program. Be sure to check out the Rhode Island Inno website and the Beat for a recap of today's event next Tuesday. So subscribe to the newsletter today. Don't miss it. And yeah, have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for coming in this virtual setting.